600 pounds up to about 800 pounds. So we have some pretty big boys. Now, 7 out of the 8 that are in here did actually come from another zoo. So we know their ages, and they're anywhere from their late 20s, some of them into their early 30s. My other alligator, however, that's in here is actually one of our original alligators here to Busch Gardens. That's actually this guy right beside us right here. This is Cutie. Cutie actually came to us back in the mid-1980s. He was actually brought in as a nuisance alligator back then, and we've been taking care of him ever since. Now, believe it or not, back then, the American alligator was actually considered critically endangered. A lot of it was due to overhunting. The American alligator, believe it or not, was very sought after for meat products and leather products all throughout the 50s and 60s, and the hunting wasn't really regulated back then. So these guys got hunted almost into extinction. But a very important thing happened for the American alligator, and that was the Endangered Species Act. It was actually started right around 1967. And the American alligator was actually one of the first animals placed on that list for protection. And they're actually one of the first ones that come off of it as well. And it's largely due to another successful program that was put alongside the Endangered Species Act, and that was a breeding program. So what would happen from about the 70s on is every time Fish and Wildlife would get a call about a nuisance alligator, they would go out there, retrieve that animal, and then would come to places like here at Busch Gardens, and a lot of other zoos and other facilities started taking in American alligators back then as well. Breeding programs were then started up, and the young were actually introduced back out into the wild through Fish and Wildlife. And it was a very successful program. To give you an idea about how successful, right now, at today's date, we actually have an estimated population of right around 1.5 million alligators in the state of Florida alone. But believe it or not, our state is actually second. There's another state out there with a heavier population of alligators than we have. Any guesses as to which state that might be? What do you guys think? Louisiana, that's exactly right. Louisiana has an estimated population of a little over 2 million. So these guys can actually now be found all throughout the southeast United States, from right here in Florida. They range as far north as the Carolinas, and as far west as Texas now is a natural range for American alligators. So kind of a cool success story. So if anybody tells you you can't save an animal from extinction, you point them out to the American alligator. So it just goes to show you what we can do when we put our minds to it. All right. So I did mention earlier that Cutie came to us as a nuisance alligator. Does anybody know the #1 cause that creates a nuisance gator? What is it that we love to do with animals in the wild but we're not supposed to do?
Feed it.
Feed them, yeah, exactly. So believe it or not, alligators actually have a natural aversion to us. We stand very tall, we make a lot of noise, they really don't want anything to do with us. But what changes that behavior is when people feed them. When you feed an alligator out in the wild, they learn very quickly that everybody on 2 legs equals possible food. So that's why it's against the law to feed alligators in the wild, because it not only creates a dangerous situation for us, it also creates a bad situation for them as well. Now, remember I was talking about earlier, the American alligator was endangered back in through the 70s and 80s and stuff. But since then, they've made a good comeback. That's the good news. The bad news is, with that good comeback, there's really no more room for relocation anymore. So most of the time when alligators are deemed a nuisance, they can't relocate anymore, so usually they're pulled and destroyed. So you definitely lose out in, so if you guys remember anything, just please remember that it is a bad idea to feed alligators in the wild. If you ever see anybody out there doing that, you let them know it's a bad idea. It's actually against the law to do so as well. All right, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on with our guys. So we're actually in our winter season, believe it or not. This is actually a fairly inactive time of the year. These guys actually go through a semi-hibernation during this time called torpor, and they pretty much spend their days doing exactly what you see my guys doing up on the bank right now. What is it these guys are doing up here?
Sleeping.
They're getting warm. Yeah, exactly. So they're sleeping, they're getting warm. Exactly. Those are all good answers. So believe it or not, alligators rely on outside sources for core body temperature. So it's actually very important for these guys to bask. And that's what they're doing. They're conserving energy and they're warming their bodies up. Now, these animals are what you consider to be, the popular term for many years was cold-blooded, but the more accurate term is actually ectothermic. And what that means is they rely on outside sources for their core body temperature. Now I'm going to use Cutie here as an example. If you look at his back right here, you see all those ridges all along Cutie's back? Those actually play a very big role in his ability to warm up. Those are actually called osteoderms. That's actually, you're looking at kind of like a natural solar panel. That's dermal bone that's directly covered by skin, and that dermal bone is very porous, so it allows a lot of blood flow to travel up and close to all those little porous holes. So when that dark skin and that bone heats up, it heats up very efficiently, it warms up all that blood that's real close to that surface, and that's what's going to bring up his core temperature. Now, alligators are actually so good at doing this, they can actually get their core temperature up to close to 15 degrees above the ambient temperature. So it's also easy for alligators to overheat themselves, even in the wintertime. So what do you guys think about how would an alligator cool back off? Water, that's a great way to cool off. How else are they gonna cool off? So shade, yeah, shade, they can use mud. I heard somebody say mud, that's a good one too. So things like water, shade, and mud, there's all good ways for these guys to cool off and regulate body temperature. There's one other thing that alligators like to do to regulate their body temperature, and you see alligators doing it all the time, but you probably don't even realize it. What's that classic alligator pose you see on the postcards? You see an alligator sitting on a beach, and what is he doing? Exactly, he's sitting there with his mouth open, right? That's another way alligators actually regulate body temperature. Alligators don't sweat like you or I, so another way they get rid of that heat and stuff is they'll actually open up their mouth and they pant, just like a dog would do. When they pant, it helps them exhaust all that heat, and their mouth also acts kind of like a radiator, so that kind of brings that temperature down to a more manageable level. So that's a lot of what you're going to see our guys doing this time of year, is basically just conserving energy and just trying to stay warm and stay uncomfortable, just like our guys are doing right now. Now I could ramble on and on about American alligators, but I want to take the time to turn it over to you, and I'd love to go ahead and start answering some questions. So who has some questions for me? Yes? That is a great question. So why don't we have any female alligators? The simple short answer to that is that females are trouble. That's the easy answer.
I thought it was the males.
It is, yeah. So basically, I'm just joking. So yeah, so what it is alligators are very, very well represented out in the wild. So we were part of a breeding program I talked about earlier. So we did have males and females. We were producing offspring, but since there's really no reason for that, these guys are very well represented. We wanted to get away from the breeding program. So it actually does curb a lot of the aggression stuff is by just having the males in here. And what it is during like the nesting season, as males get very territorial, and they want to stake out prime nesting areas the females might like. So that's something that we'll do during that nesting season. It's actually very impressive. Our guys will still go through the seasonal changes and stuff, so when we get into the springtime, they will display and stuff, but it is, the aggression does get curved quite a bit without the females in here. And so yeah, so the displaying is quite cool. One of the things these guys love to do, which is one of my favorite things to watch them do, is when they bellow. I don't know if you guys have ever seen bellowing. You can probably look it up on the internet now. I'm sure it's on YouTube. But alligator bellow is so impressive. Whenever these guys get in the water, they'll actually arch their head and their tail up out of the water, and they let out such a deep bass tone bellow that it actually makes the water appear to be boiling all along their back. It kind of bubbles up and dances. And that's one way that they attract females. It also serves to let other males know that if you come too close here, that there could be a potential fight. So that's what that bellowing is all about. Yes? Is he on are you wondering if he's getting, we're gonna have one less keeper here in a minute? Yeah. So what he's doing, yeah, he's just kind of checking this spot out. He probably wants to come out and bask, so I'll probably just move over this way a little bit so you can, no. But yeah, he probably is looking to come out and to bask. Now, during the seasonal changes, again, we'll get what we call a feed response, where he might show up, during the summertime. If he's showing up like that, my guess is watching his behavior close is probably gonna be more a feed response. But right now it's the winter time, it's all about conserving energy for them, so he's probably looking to come out to lay on the shore. This is a prime basking area right here. Great question. So the fish and the turtles are in the habitat where the alligators eat the fish and the turtles in here. I'm going to say not for the most part. So they really don't have much reason to, because we're going to feed them. They know Sam and I are going to provide them with what they need. So they really don't have much reason to go after the fish or turtles. I'll never say never, because as soon as I tell you guys never, they'll eat a turtle and you guys will call me a liar for the rest of the day. But no, they could if they wanted to, but like I said, again, since we feed them, there's just really not much reason to. The turtles seem to know that too. And here's the amazing thing. The turtles, we actually didn't place in here. So you guys have any ideas how the turtles ended up in here?
Mm-mm.
There's one big thing that happens in nature all the time. Birds, yeah, that's exactly right. So birds, like your ibis, that are walking along the island right there, you'll see the white birds with the orange bills. You probably see them all throughout the park. The white ibis is actually notorious for it. There's other birds that'll do the same thing. They'll find baby turtles, they'll actually catch up those baby turtles, and their behavior is actually take the baby turtle to water, to kind of clean it off and get ready to try to eat it. A lot of times they can't eat them, so they end up letting them get away. So the first turtles and stuff that ended up in here was actually brought in by the birds. And I'm sure that probably happened with some fish as well, but I can't say that for sure. But I do know that's what happened with the turtles with the birds. Brought them in. So yeah, and then ever since then we've been taking care of and feeding them. Yes. That is correct. So her question was, she heard that alligators can't eat when it's under a certain temperature. So when you get to the colder temperatures, eventually what happens is their core temperature will drop with that. So we talked about earlier them being ectothermic, so they rely on that heat for their core body temperature. When they get to those lower temperatures, everything slows down on digestion and everything, and it actually gets to a point where they can't digest and break down the food anymore. So that does happen at certain times of the year. Now it's going to vary depending on where they're at. So if they're here in Florida, it's probably going to be a much smaller window. You get up to the Carolinas, it's going to be colder for longer periods of time. It's going to be a longer stint, that they go between meals or trying to eat. So our guys will actually naturally go off showing interest in food because they know they can't process it, can't break it down. So yeah, that is true. So it just depends. Now you might be surprised. In Florida, you could have a nice sunny day and it's kind of cold, feels cold to us, but it could be potentially warm enough for them. So them laying out and basking like a nice day like today with the sun, it could be, lower and cold to us, but it actually might be enough for them to build up their core temperature enough. Great question. So is there a time that it's safer to be around them? So alligators are most active throughout any time of the year. I grew up around here. My own personal advice, you can, I've been canoeing, I've been swimming, in springs and stuff, nice clear water. If you respect them and just kind of, stay aware of your surroundings and just look at them from a distance, they don't want anything to do with us. The only times you'll hear about alligator attacks is what we were talking about earlier, is alligators have been fed by people, or it could be female protecting a nest. Female alligators make excellent mothers. They're very protective over nest sites. They're very protective over their young for up to 2 years if they stick around. And then the mistaken identity is pretty low with these guys. But yeah, any time of the year and stuff, you're gonna see alligators more during this time of the year when you're canoeing and stuff because they're gonna be out basking. They wanna take advantage of the sun on a nice sunny day. So you're gonna get out and bask, especially during the colder times. But yeah, alligators really, you just have to respect them and stay your distance. Most active, take this for what you will, they're most active getting towards like either evening hours into the early morning hours. So from dusk till dawn, these guys are moving around, doing a lot. The early morning hours they've actually found is when they're the most active and they're hunting and looking for like food and stuff. So, keep things like that in mind. You go like swimming and stuff like that. Yeah.
What about if you provoke them?
Yes. How often do I use my stick? Well, if he comes up there towards me, I use it to trip Sam. So that's how I use it first off, as I'm getting out of here. But no, basically, no, they're actually, believe it or not, the alligators are pretty good. So when we come in here, we don't typically have too many issues. Now, I've been working with these guys for, going on 27 years. And over the years, I was talking about earlier, we had a breeding program. We had the males and females. Then the summertime is a whole other story. Because when the females would nest, they were very protective over their nest sites. They would nest in here. So there were times we had to come in for one reason or another, and the sticks got used quite a bit. We had trying to work around them safely. Obviously, I don't want to, unnecessarily stress them out, but sometimes I have to go in and take care of something where there's collecting eggs, which they're not going to like that, obviously. But yeah, so that at that point, yeah, they might end up, getting a hold of that stick or something like that. But for now, like with just the males, it actually does make it a lot easier, and we can, work pretty safely around them, pretty comfortably around them. So yeah, we watch behaviors. There's always 2 of us in here. Sam's actually paying attention to the alligators, that one that's been sneaking up behind me right here.
Up on you.
Yeah, he's paying attention to them, and he's gonna let me know if one of them comes up to get me. If that fails, if Sam fails me, you guys are a great indicator if I'm getting ready to be grabbed by an alligator. You know how I can tell from you guys? No, it's not shocked faces. I see all the camera phones come up. Like, something's getting ready to happen behind me. So yeah, exactly.
But what about somebody provoke them?
If you provoke them, oh yeah, you never want to provoke an alligator. If we talked about feeding them earlier, that's a really bad thing to do. That creates a very dangerous situation. But yeah, in the wildness stuff, I mean, you basically just want to, keep your distance.
Yeah, because I got one at home and it's like 7.5 feet right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a female.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, you have to be careful. Yeah, especially in the summertime. They get to nesting that time of year.
Oh, shit.
So she's mature now. Yeah.
Yeah, because she goes to one pond to the other pond because we got 2 ponds at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 7 feet, 8 feet and stuff. That's pretty much an adult female that's probably producing and stuff.
And
so yeah, you wanna
she's
be
been there
careful.
since she was a baby, too.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
As long as
cool.
nobody don't feed her, she's good, but there's Mexicans like to feed them, especially red meat.
Yeah. All right, we can talk. Talk after. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming out to Busch Gardens today. Thank you for joining us for American Alligator Talk. Again, my name is Jason. It's my partner Sam. We'll actually be exiting out towards y'all's right. If you guys have any other final questions, feel free to stop us and ask. And if not, you guys enjoy the rest of your Busch Gardens. Thank you guys very much. Yes.